Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today for IPDay's, I'll call it Webinar Thursday for today. Today's webinar is all about MyCareerShines, Florida's educational and career planning system for adult education. I'm June Rawl, Florida's IPDay director, and today our presenter is Maggie Miller. We're so fortunate to have Maggie join us today as she talks about My Career Shine. Maggie is Florida's lead field trainer. Along with that, she's a global career developer facilitator and a certified career advisor. Maggie's going to take us on a virtual tour of My Career Shines. And if you haven't visited My Career Shines lately, I'm sure after this presentation, you're going to go out there and look at all the wonderful and powerful tools that this site can do. But before we get started, as usual, I'm going to remind you of some housekeeping rules. You know that you all are muted and in listen-only mode. The webinar is recorded and it will be archived on the IPDay website within 48 hours. The document that's being presented today is already uploaded on the IPDay website, so you can get it if you haven't from there. And we're going to be entertaining questions today. And as usual, I want you to post those questions in that Q&A tab. So I'm going to turn it over to Maggie, and we're going to get started with My Career Shines. Thank you for joining us, Maggie.
It is a pleasure to be here to present My Career Shines, powered by Kuder Incorporated. My Career Shines is the branding for Florida for our career and education planning system for every resident in the state of Florida. So I'll get rolling and explain about a little bit of history, how we got started, but really the majority of this time will be spent live in the system to see a very broad overview of My Career Shines. Before I get started, I also wanted to let everyone listening know that June and I will be organizing at least three state regional trainings for anyone who is on and listening and would like the full training to know how to implement My Career Shines with your adult education students. So look for that. We haven't nailed down dates, but that will be something that we'll be planning after this webinar. There are 3 trainers in Florida. I am covering actually the green and the blue, that's 60 counties, which has been a lot of fun, very busy on the road, but meeting the needs of Florida. We have a trainer in the South named Paula, and so if you're listening from any of these regions, just know that you are covered, and we are here to support you prior to training, during training, and post-training. I am, as June said, a certified career advisor, but you may want to make note of my email address there. It's millerm@kuder.com. I'll leave that up for a second in case anyone is listening and wants to write it down. Just so you know, I'm not going to go into great detail, but just so you know that we do adhere to the technical standards for reliability, validity, and fairness. And these are some of our partners. Just to let you, ONET should be familiar with to many of you. Our latest partnership is the Department of Economic Opportunity, which I will be pointing out those resources once we get started. I like to share this slide to explain to many people who probably remember Florida Choices prior to 2015. Well, Florida Choices, our system, My Career Shines, powered by Kuder, has replaced Florida Choices, and we are legislatively funded. So all of that funding starts at University of West Florida. They manage our contract, and then Florida Shines, you see there next on the visual. This is the broader website where our high school students track their transcripts and their eligibility for bright futures and their general progress toward graduation. I'm here to show you a piece of that website, a service of Florida Shines is MyCareerShines. So that's how it all kind of works together. And we are fully supported by the Department of Education. These are some of our other partners where we address the needs of adults in the state of Florida. So a person does not have to be a student at a college or university, but we support all residents in the state of Florida. And if someone were to ask me, you know, what is MyCareerShines, I would show them this little paragraph, because the point is that it's shared, which means because it's funded by the legislature, it's available for free at no cost for every resident in the state of Florida. MyCareerShines provides career awareness and readiness for all Floridians. And just so you know, we do have 3 systems. One that's coming, pre-K to 5th grade, career exploration, 6th through 12th grade, which is also called MyCareerShines. And then we have one system for all adults. So you may have adult students that in high school had accounts. And those are issues or topics that we talk about in a deeper training. But we've been around since 2015, so you may be working with adult education students that may have accounts. This is the sequence that I'd like to share before we jump in live. We start with, in this system that you're going to see, assessment results. We have 3 assessments we'll talk about. And out of those results, what career clusters and pathways are being presented to start exploring? And then out of that, what suggested occupations will appear for our users based on their assessment results? And if they were to go on to a post-secondary program, they can find majors and programs, institutions, post-secondary institutions, where they can actually apply to those institutions from their account, which is kind of gives it a one-stop shop feel. And then finally, with financial aid, students can apply for their FAFSA within their account, and also for adults, we have over 3,000 scholarships available, which is kind of amazing. So I'm going to let you kind of peek at this slide without me reading to you. And then I will say that we are going to end with that final bullet, and I'm going to show you the electronic portfolio. It comes in high school, but it's available high school and for all adult users. So you'll get to peek at that. Before we go into the live system, I do want to mention that our system uses responsive design. And what that means is with any smart device, a student can access their account. I like to say that a student could be at the dentist with their phone while they're applying for scholarships or exploring occupations. We'll come back. We're actually going to address questions throughout our time in 2 different places, halfway through and at the end. So I will be peeking at the questions to answer. So what I'm going to do now is toggle over live. Okay, so this is the website, and before I get started, I would like to remind everyone, this is a broad overview. During the training, the trainers, myself and Paula, we offer not only ways to interpret results, but we kind of drip strategies throughout in ways you can implement. So you're just taking a peek at the system today, hopefully to entice you to sign up for those trainings once we get them scheduled. Okay, so this is the landing page for MyCareerShines, and as you can see from here is our elementary login space when it comes and when it's live. Here is the middle and high school space, and we are going to look at the college students and workforce, and that and workforce means all adult users. I will say, because you won't see this right now, but there is a specific login for adult education students, and that's again what we address in training. Okay, so when you click here, I go down to log in. So I'm going to log into my sample account. That will take me just a moment. Okay. So this is the landing page, I'm sorry, this is the dashboard. The dashboard for once students have their accounts set up. And again, during training, we teach you how to log your students in and get them rolling. So you have a photo and a space for a photo. If you notice under the name here, there are categories. So when students, when they create their accounts, they have a list of categories in which they most closely identify. So for my training account, I have a worker exploring to change an entire different pathway. So I move up, I'm going to move over and just kind of really briefly talk about the dashboard and then move to the menu on the left. We do want to point out here that there is a Spanish toggle. The Spanish is immediate and everything is translated quickly into Spanish unless it is a trademarked name, like, for instance, like the name of our career assessments. We do have a space over here for some account settings. This is where the students can control some of their personal settings in the system. We also have this envelope. We have a one-way messaging system, which means that if you're working in an adult education center, I was at West Area Adult School yesterday in Lakeland, Florida, so that team there can actually send messages to their students at that school or at your location. Also, we have a list of suggested activities to do in the system. These are self-monitored, self-regulated, and it just helps your students to kind of move through the system throughout the time that you have with them. And it also helps you as an administrator of the system to kind of see what's going on with that student. One of my favorite features of the adult education version of this are the ability for students to establish their needs and barriers. And you do this through account settings. Of course, I teach you how to do that in training. But when I go to view resources, I have actually clicked on certain barriers and needs. And then when I do that, our users are funneled some resources based on how they listed their needs and resources. So there are lots of information here for your students to help them on their path as they figure out where they're going next in life. Okay, so that was needs and barriers. And then we do have some recommended links, and I teach you in training how to add links to a page for students. So for the rest of our time, we are going to look at this menu on the left over here. I'm starting with the home button. I'm skipping take an assessment, but before I do, I want to talk to you quickly about the assessments. And again, we go into great depth in our extended training. There is a career interest assessment, and that will assess on a Likert scale. Students are presented scenarios where they answer questions about their interest, and it is their career interest. And then they take the skills confidence assessment, which has nothing to do with interest, but purely about a person's confidence about similar scenarios. And then they finally get the work values inventory, which assesses what work values are important to that person. Now, what's fascinating about this is when those metrics work together, this is where their list of suggested occupations come from, because they're being matched up to where they're highly interested, highly confident, and work values that are also matched to those occupations. So let's go there next. So students then will go over to explore occupations. And this is where your students really, adult education students, some have no idea, some have past and history, and they have a grip on their interest. So this is where they can either be validated or learn about an entirely new opportunity in their future. Because of timing, I'm only going to focus on this first way to explore occupations, but just know they can explore occupations through career clusters, by title, and by their Holland code and how to learn more about that. So I click here, and you will see the list of suggested occupations with how they are aligned with my interest, skills, and values. You also have a state demand column here. We will talk about in depth later in a training. I don't have time to do it today. But the first thing you see are these check marks and maybe some symbols. We do have 2 symbols that you'll look for, and these are the bright outlook symbols coming from ONET, our National Bureau of Labor and Statistics data, and also the National Green Economy. And these both indicate growth nationally. So I always teach students to, if you can, focus on where you have great alignment and then look for growth. So when you click on any of these occupations, I'm going to start here, for example, with social worker. What you see are some tabs with some information all about that occupation. And again, this information comes from ONET. We have videos throughout, short videos that kind of take a student from a different modality to learn about that occupation. You can see a salary range, what's required for this occupation, the number of jobs, expected jobs, and the increase. And that's super important information. You also can learn what in the world does it mean, in this case, to be a social worker. So you've got working conditions and tasks. This right here, this space is fascinating when I work with students and adults, because this is where they can validate, or maybe they thought an occupation looked a certain way, or you had certain tasks and they read the reality, and sometimes they change their mind or continue on their search with that occupation. There's really nothing to do here. It's an overview of the interest, skills, and work values, but I do want to show you this tab for education and experience. This is where they learn about what's required for that occupation that they're investigating. And then once they start reading that, yes, that's something that's really exciting to me, then what they might do is go to think, would I be willing to try some post-secondary education? So I'm going to click here on this link, a suggested major. And what's beautiful about this, and our school counselors love this space, is that they can click here on this tab and actually locate schools in Florida offering that major that I clicked on. And once they do that, guess what? They can click on a school, and when that school data loads, they can actually apply to that school right here. And then you get a new set of tabs. You can also learn about what is the ticket, what's the sticker price to attend that school. Lots of data. We received this from the National Center for Educational Statistics. So I kind of went on to a different tab, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to use my back arrow button and go back to where I was on that occupation, because there's one more thing I want to show you. Okay, when you go to the salary button, this is of great interest to many people that we work with. The salary button has a lot of information. You can actually translate this hourly to hourly. And this represents the beginning of a career, in this case as a social worker. And we all know that social workers don't make a lot of money to start with. But we can also look at the end of a successful career, what a student may expect to be making at the end of a successful career. But I want to direct you down to the space below. So I live in Polk County, and let's just say I'm a student who really wants to be a social worker. What I'm noticing here is that my increase is well above the nation. That's really good news. But what if I knew I wanted to stay here in Polk County? What I would do is locate my workforce region, and we are region 17. What you're seeing is our partner with the Department of Economic Development, and they feed us this information about growth. And look at this. In this case, Polk County is actually above the state. So if I'm counseling with students, I always take them here because some things can happen. Let me just show you. What if I have to move back to the Panhandle, for example? What happened? Oh, it looks like it's the same percentage of growth. But these all change based on where a student is coming from. I just clicked on Brevard, and it actually went a little bit below the state. So this is a fun space. It's a counseling tool that I use with students all over the state. I'm going to go ahead and move on down this menu. Plan for education is an important space as well. And if you can see these topics, we can, when I click on Learn About Financial Aid in this menu, here are some topics. This is where, as I mentioned earlier, a student can actually collect their information for their FSA ID and collect their FAFSA information and complete their FAFSA, their FAFSAs. We have some, I know throughout the state, we have some high schools having FAFSA night, and they actually take parents to, with their student to their MyCareerShines accounts and complete their FAFSA with them while they have their accounts open, which is awesome. I'm going to focus now on number 3. I've mentioned this earlier also. We have scholarship and grant database. This is from Peterson's database of scholarships, and I want you to know for adults, there are, I don't know if you can see what I'm highlighting, over 3,000 scholarships available. So what students do is they start checking them out. You can click on one. You determine if you are eligible. It tells you the description and then the requirements, and then the student will go here and apply to that scholarship. So it is a one-stop shop again for scholarships. And again, we have over 3,000. Also, students can find apprenticeships, and I think that would be very appropriate for many of your students. These are links out, and they take you to the FLDOE apprenticeship programs, and then they would go from there and looking for their apprenticeships. I'd like to also show you Plan for Work. In Plan for Work, we have all kinds of resources. We have several videos on the steps of the interview process, how to use social networking, and how to find professional associations. The other space that we have underneath that is Find a Job. And Find a Job teaches us how to research employers, which is critical for students to be able to interview with grace and knowing about that employer when they walk into that interview. And then also finding job openings, and this takes them to employflorida.com. So as I explained to our moderators, what I'm going to do, because we're in our second section of the program, which includes the portfolio, I am going to field a few questions, probably not all of them, but just a few to start with, and then we will address any questions after the session that I could not answer. Okay, it looks like we have one question, and I'm going to answer this question live. Okay, are the scholarships available for secondary students only for adult students as well? So when a student creates their account as a high schooler, they have access to a scholarship database. Believe it or not, there are only 281 active scholarships for our high school students, over 3,000 for adults. So they are available for secondary students. Yes, they are national scholarships. And we have been learning some great success of some of our users who are getting these scholarships. So hope I answered that. There was only one question, so I'm going to go back in the system. Okay, great question. All right, so now we see all of the things that we can do in the system. Now let's talk about what's inside of that portfolio. So in the portfolio, we house all of the assessments. We house all of their assessments that you saw on the screen earlier, the interests, work values, and confidence. Now, what I'd like to show you is that you can add other scores. So I could here, for example, here's some scores that you could add that are kind of built into the system. Many of you are familiar probably with ASVAB. Let's say one of your students have taken the ASVAB. This is where they would just report that score. But what I'd like to show you right here is that you can add an additional score. And this is where, in my high school version of this, my additional score, my example is a TABE. So you would actually add a TABE score here, the date it was taken, and then here you would add your breakdown of scores. So you're just reporting your scores. What I usually do in training, and I have time to do this, what I'm going to do is toggle over to my high school version, and the reason I'm doing this is because I have more content in it, and I want you to be able to see the resume builder. So if you'll give me just a second, while I'm doing this, you can be thinking of any questions that you might have, and we will be right back in. And I love sharing the high school version as well because you can, as you can see, it looks the same. We just have we don't have the needs and barriers that we talked about earlier. And it's designed to be used as a tool to transition our high school students into post-secondary. So down here, you're going to ignore my goals and my academics because that's a high school feature that we have, but everything else is identical. And I wanted to show you this because I have more content built into this. So you can see what it looks like with robust information. So we have a reference builder, and the reference builder is a fill in the space fillable form. So it's a fillable form. So we hold their references. We have a cover letter builder that I will show you. The cover letter builder has also a video and a sample cover letter. But what's beautiful about our cover letter builder is it's also a fillable form, and we actually show students what ought to be in each paragraph, and that's very helpful when they're comprising those cover letters. And the other beautiful piece of our cover letter builder is that we actually, when we create one, the system does all of the formatting. So as you can see, the student, they do not have to think for a second about how to format that letter. It's done for them. And that is the same with the resume. So the resume builder is a fillable form as well. And when you go to new resume, for example, and then I'm going to show you a completed one, you will see these sections. So these are the sections of the resume, and within each section are also fillable forms. So in this case, work experience, put your title, and you can see what's required, save it. I'm going to cancel that. But these are the sections. I'll let you take a look at them. All a fillable form. So let's look at a completed resume. This is usually in a training where I hear some positive noises come from my my members, my participants, because the people that I train really recognize the value of this. It's time saving. It's intuitive. And now you can see I've completed sections, and now what I can do is edit from here. And when you go to preview, you can choose a style, and it's very well, very well could be that you are working with students who need to build a functional resume. This is not. This is a chronological resume, but we talk about that in training as well. And when you go to preview, we do all of that formatting for the student. It's quite amazing. So that's our resume builder. And then I'm going to move down to my documents. We'll talk about my favorites in a training and why that's important. But I do want to show you the document uploader. because you can upload up to 20 documents. That the two areas, what you would do is you would upload documents of anything you say that you've earned or achieved. Maybe there was some industry certification that your students have earned. This is where they would be transparent. If they put it on their resume, which we hope they do, then they could upload it here and kind of prove that. Your TABE scores may want to go here. Anything they're also proud of. So just think about the old three-dimensional portfolio or notebooks that people used to carry around. This is the way the world is today. It's all electronic, and it's very impressive. And you'll get to see all of this in just a moment and what that portfolio looks like. And that's where we're going next. Again, please ignore my goals and my academics. This is for our high schoolers. But down here for my e-profile, what this is an electronic portfolio. And let's just start with the beginning. And this is how the user designs their own portfolio. But before we get through this, I want to show you this URL. So this URL is owned by the user. No one can Google it. It's very private. But the way that this URL is being used throughout the state is either prior to or during some sort of interview, a scholarship interview, a job interview, an interview at a post-secondary education institution. So this could be used and shared by the user. So you can choose a color scheme, and under the color scheme is social media links. So if your students have a personal website, they could put it here. If they have a LinkedIn, they would just grab that URL and drop it in. And only if they use Twitter for professional reasons, they would put their Twitter here. For the website, I recently got published by my company, Kuder.com. So I just dropped my URL there, and now it's part of my portfolio. So I'm coming on down. You can upload a professional photo. Here's a summary paragraph, just welcoming people into the portfolio. And then how do you reach me if I get that interview or that job? You can add a phone number if you want to. That one is expired. What are my favorites? I want you to know that about me, or not. I could uncheck these as well. You may have 2 kinds or 3 kinds of resumes. I know some people have a general work resume, and some people have resumes for areas of specialty like music or any performing arts or athletes. So you could toggle between whatever resume is appropriate when you're sharing. There are the references there, and you can have as many as you want. I think 3 is usually the magic number. And then this is the portfolio. Again, I only have 8 examples, but you can have up to 20 documents that showcase your skills and talents. So if I am sharing, let's say June, you were on introducing me, and I'm in an interview, and I'm going to share my URL, interviewing with June, this is what she would see. And what's so dynamic about this is it's a multi-dimensional look at a person. It's all electronic. And I say in training, it's a little sneaky. It really looks like I have some web design skills, but we build this for our users behind the scenes. All they have to do is put content in it. So this link I just talked about, my blog, if I clicked there, you could read that blog immediately. This goes straight out to my LinkedIn, and then this goes straight out to my Twitter. And again, adding dimension to your students. This is just a general, how do you reach me if I get that interview or job? And again, I unchecked my phone number, but that could be added. What do I want you to know about me personally? Down here below that are 3 topics: the resume, the references, and portfolio. And what I want to say about the resume is that resume was only built one time. And our system it gathers all of the information from that resume, it reorganizes it to be part of the web page. So when you click on it, it will unfold, and it looks different because it's part of my web page. And this will fold up and you will see the references. And then the portfolio will fold out and you can open up any of these. You can see any of those certificates or resumes or case studies that I've written. So what I'd like to do from here, as we discussed, I'm going to hit the home button. I'm going to go back up to see if we have any questions. And let's see, I have, I think, 3 more questions. Okay, I've got to read this. Okay, here is a question. How can I get the training for MyCareerShines? The training for MyCareerShines could be provided either through me, and I can go back and give you my email address. But I think if you wait till mid-April or May, you will be receiving information about at least 3 regional trainings that June and I are going to be organizing. So let's see if I can go. I'm just going to say this, have a pen ready. I'm going to give you my email address verbally. But we've made a commitment to these 3, at least 3 regional trainings. My email address is Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, M as in Miller, Miller M at Kuder, Kuder.com. Okay, next question. I'm very interested in having the full in-depth training. Okay, I think we just talked about this. I'm sorry I didn't read that prior. So just look for that, look for those trainings coming up. But listen, if you need one and I have a day open, you've got my email address, I can actually come to you if I am free. I'm very responsive because we want this out. So email me if you need to, but look for those offerings. And I think the next question is about training. I'm going to skip that. Can students develop an action plan for continuing their education? They can. We do not have a built-in tool. But that action plan, I actually can share an action plan template that I have, if that's something that you would like, to the person that wrote this question. You can just email me, but that could be one of their documents that they upload. I would highly recommend that. And then we also have a question about cost. Early on, I don't know if the person that's asking this came early, but I do need to reiterate this. This is legislatively funded. The cost for me to train is funded. All of our materials are funded. The use of the system are funded. And you have support that is not going away. So just know that there is a cost. We are funding it through our taxpayer dollars. So it comes at no cost to the user. I promise. I get that question a lot. I should have emphasized that a little bit more. So those are the questions that I have in front of me. I guess I will thank everyone for joining in. I hope to meet you at future trainings, and I'm going to turn this back over to June.
Maggie, thank you so much. I mean, I just am wowed every time I see this. So thank you so much for taking the time to share this information with us. Now you're going to see, we really appreciate your feedback. So you're going to see 3 short questions that are going to appear on your screen. If you could take an opportunity to answer those, we would love to hear your response. I'll give you about 45 seconds. Okay, great. Well, I hope you'll be able to join us on January 29th for our next IP Day webinar. This webinar is going to concentrate on effective strategies for improving TABE 11 and 12 Level M language skills. So I hope you can join us as we review some great instructional strategies and give you some support in particularly central ideas and detail. So until then, I wish you a great rest of the day, and thank you again, Maggie, for conducting this webinar for us. We'll see you soon.
You're most welcome.